I am Gail Tenen-Spock. I'm the Associate Vice President for Continuing and Distance Education at NJIT. And this first day of the conference, it is my honor to be able to be your quote-unquote MC. Tomorrow we'll be moving this conference, as you know, to Rutgers at the Hilton in East Brunswick. Easy on, easy off the turnpike, no snow. And so we'll all see you tomorrow as well. Welcome everyone to NJIT on a very cold but non-snowy winter day. Everyone here is quite excited to have the opportunity to have this day-and-a-half event, which is about 4 faculty and administrators and staff involved in online and hybrid learning. And this is a true exchange of information, knowledge, experience among those of us who do this day by day. I think you're going to find the talks, the keynotes, the non-cash bar reception of interest later in the evening. So stick with us today and come tomorrow. Before I actually start this event, I want to acknowledge, they're standing here, the folks who actually have worked together for many months to make this conference a reality, and who have not only put their sweat equity into this event for you all, but have also contributed hard cash to make it possible for you to be here. So, the first person here is Mr. Jim DuPont, who represents Pearson, who all of us, the colleges that are partnering here for this event, in one way or the other, are working with Pearson. Next is Antonius Bittman, who for the last 5 years has been responsible with Bernadette Powers, who's out front, really making a Rutgers conference, and now in the 6th year, it is with more colleges, including NJIT and Ocean County College. Representing Ocean County College, next to Antonius, is Jeff Harmon, who has a very active agenda in distance learning in the southern part of our state. And behind him, the tall person, is Blake Carrigy, that many of you know from NJIT, who this conference could not have been possible without Blake's help in making it so. And we have Sherry Prubis, who represents New Jersey EdgeNet, who also has worked tirelessly in this state on behalf of faculty interested in distance, digital learning, and hybrid learning. So let me first give them a round of applause for their help and let them sit and get comfortable. So thank you very much. This is a conference that really focuses on faculty. So I do not want to take a lot of your time talking about NJIT or tomorrow Rutgers or Ocean County College. I really do want to welcome you, though, to this great university that has been providing for the STEM professionals of this state and this region for 132 years. We continue to do this, and we do it more and more in using fully online or hybrid methods. And so many of our faculty are here today and want to meet their colleagues across the state. So welcome to the NJIT faculty and administrators, welcome to the Rutgers faculty and administrators, and to the Ocean County College faculty and administrators. Let me talk a bit before we start about your program. Today we have this room and the next room for the breakout sessions. The keynotes, and there are 2, are both in this room. So please, this is your home base. Your coats are here if you needed to have a coat on this cold day. And I said to turn off the phones, and mine is on. I am so sorry. I was too busy planning things, and it was the president's office, but we'll leave that alone. You have a program. This is Ballroom A. Next door is Ballroom B. Restrooms are around the corner. And in between, we have coffee and breaks. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of food available during the day because our students are not coming back, as yours too, until next Tuesday, but there is some food service open downstairs if anyone feels the need to have some energy that way. But I think we're going to have plenty of energy here from what we're going to hear. There is a short break between the two breakout sessions. Please network, please talk, but at the completion of the second breakout, please return here to hear Kim Scalzo. And then when she finishes, we are all going downstairs for a lovely reception in a lovely big area where we can talk, we can share experience, and we can learn more from each other. So without further ado, I'd like to call up a very important person at our university to give a welcome and introduction. May I ask our provost, Dr. Fadi Deek, who is provost and senior executive vice president for academic affairs, to give some opening remarks. Fadi, the floor is yours.
Gail is leaving with my notes.
He'll do them much better.
Thank you very much, Gail. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our president, Dr. Joel Bloom, welcome again to the NJIT campus. As Gail indicated, I'm the Chief Academic Officer of the university, and it's an honor for me to make some introductory remarks at this event. While our faculty and our administrators know the history of NJIT, perhaps some of our visitors don't know enough. So I'd like to mention some of our interests and accomplishments in terms of online learning. The history of NJIT in the late 20th century and up to the present is entwined with very important technological advances that have made significant difference in the teaching and the learning that takes place on this campus, as well as elsewhere. In the mid-70s, NJIT researchers were engaged in designing and developing what was then characterized as computer-mediated communication software, which you know essentially refers to any human interaction that takes place through the use of electronic devices. Soon after, this research at the university produced a very important technological innovation. And some of you may know it by its acronym, EYES, which stands for Electronic Information Exchange System. EYES back then provided facilities and capabilities that allowed email, discussion, and even messaging. We used EYES at this university for a number of reasons, but also others elsewhere did so, primarily to engage in collaboration and facilitate meetings and workings online. I was personally privileged then at the time as an undergraduate student and also a graduate student to be a member of this research laboratory that produced EYES, which was called the Computerized Conferencing and Communication Center. Soon we migrated from the administrative use of EYES to academic use, where in the late 80s we offered our first online course using our own homegrown software. We also trademarked the virtual classroom. This makes EYES a precursor to many of the management systems that we use today to teach and learn. I personally introduced my own online course in 1990, Introduction to Computer Science, and in 1993, with support from the Sloan Foundation, we put a complete undergraduate degree in information systems online. Much has changed since then. Today, we have 10 online degrees, developing more with the help of Pearson. We have 20 online certificates. This past year, we have offered 300 online and 100 hybrid courses with more than 5,000 unique registrations. NJIT is now prepared to take the next leap in terms of innovations in digital learning, and we intend to continue to break the barriers between the physical and the virtual classroom, and we devote text, and we have devoted energy and ideas to doing so in our strategic plan for the 2015-2020, which we call 2020 Vision. We refer to the term conversions, where no longer do students need to distinguish between our face-to-face, online, and hybrid courses. They don't have to look in the registration system for various sections in different modes. Students will be able to walk into a classroom physically or simply join the same class at a distance, synchronously or asynchronously, as their needs and circumstances dictate. This transition has been underway since this past semester. We will continue the semester with a handful of courses aiming to have 25% of all sections offered being converged. So we see our students taking our classes and earning degrees here in a number of ways. If face-to-face is the best fit, so be it. And if it's not, so be it as well. The students will be able to avail themselves of what we offer in any way that makes sense to them and still receive the same benefit. This conference will pose and answer questions that are critically important to online learning, but also to higher education. It is our responsibility to always consider teaching and learning approaches that are different than what we are engaging in, to very carefully assess the use of technology, to very carefully reconsider our strategies, and provide the students the best possible skills that they will need. As Thomas Friedman told us, in their flat world, where we have an interconnected entity, politically, economically, socially, and of course, now educationally, and our students must be prepared to engage in it. I'd like to thank the sponsors of this conference, starting with Rutgers University, of course, NJIT, Ocean County College, Pearson Online, as well as NJEDge. I'd like to thank you, the audience, for being with us.
Well, I think we're off to a great start, and I thank you very much, Provost Deek, for your comments. And I do think that it would be worthwhile to start our keynoter now, since we're all here. Therefore, we'll have more time for some questions. So, with that, I'd like to bring up to the stage now Wayne Pferdehirt. I practice how to say the name. He and I have been chatting about this. In your program, you will see a bio of all our keynote speakers, and in fact, all our speakers today. So I will not read it, because we're all able to do that, but Wayne will be talking about the move to online transformation or transmission. He is from the University of Wisconsin, and I've heard him speak about this subject before, and I think you're going to set a great tone for this conference and for what we all will be talking about. So if everyone is okay with starting, how about this, a few minutes early? Wayne, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Gail. I appreciate the great honor of being with you today. Thank you, Gail, for inviting me. Gail and I were able to meet and talk at a conference we attended this summer back in Stanford, talking about some innovation in learning, and appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you today. So I'm realizing that I'm perhaps the third key contact between New Jersey and Wisconsin in the last few weeks. A week ago Sunday, Governor Christie came to Green Bay and was with the Cowboys. Fortunately, their hugs were not as celebrated as those that happened on the Green Bay side of the sidelines. But then my Badgers came here this last week, and congratulations to Rutgers for welcoming them into the Big Ten, or celebrating your arrival into the Big Ten. So I do want to extend a warm welcome to all of our Rutgers faculty and staff here for coming into the Big Ten. We're looking forward to enhancing our relationship. And let me say, as you have occasion to visit the UW-Madison, feel free to get in touch with me. I'd love to be part of welcoming you there. So it's a great family and a great group of universities in the Big Ten, so welcome to the family. So who's ready to break through some walls this afternoon? Welcome, education innovators. You wouldn't be here if you weren't seriously interested and committed to education and innovation. I'm also hoping that we have some education critics here. I think unless we look at what we do, how we do it, where we do it, with an eye to critical thought, then we stay stuck where we were. And what I would like to do with getting us started in this conference is challenging some of the walls perhaps we and others put around what online education is and what it can be. A little bit about my background. I've been at the University of Wisconsin-Madison since, 1991. And came out of industry to come to the university to start up some new programs in engineering. In 1998, I was asked to take over development of what was UW-Madison's first completely online degree program. This is called a Master of Engineering and Professional Practice. The idea was helping engineers look at where they are in their careers and what is it that they need to take a major step forward in advancing their careers. And so we designed a curriculum from the ground up in terms of the content and the delivery of that program. And since then, things have grown. So I've been doing online education since '98. Learned some things over those 16 years, but I guess the flavor I'd like to give today is I'd like to share some thoughts, some perspectives that I've gained over those years, just as I've learned from many others. But I'm also here to learn from you. So I'm hoping that we can keep this session interactive. I'll be asking some questions along the line, and I really want to invite your ideas and your suggestions. So often we start with, all of us are in online education to one degree or another. A good colleague of mine said to me several years ago, he said, the problem is too often we jump to online as an answer, but we haven't really asked what's the question we're trying to answer. And for me, that boils down to, when we talk about online education, are we talking about a transmission medium where we're just pushing out more of what we have? So we're trying to say we got good stuff and we just want more folks to be part of that. Or are we looking at online education as really an opportunity for us to completely recreate the quality, the impact of the education that we have? And I'd like to explore some opportunities that I believe we can do in that. So I mentioned to you that my first foray into online education began in 1998 with this Master of Engineering and Professional Practice. We recently renamed that the Master of Engineering Management. What's key in that program is that both the curriculum and the format were really completely rethought from ground zero for the students that we were teaching. A couple things in terms of the performance of that program. So that's a cohort-based program. We only admit 30 students a year into that program. They take a fixed curriculum, but high degree of customization by the projects that students select as they go through the program. In the first 14 years of the program, we've graduated 420 graduates. 95% of the students complete their studies within 2 years, 97% over 3 years. Blows the doors off anything we actually have on campus for continuing students in that respect. Over half the students report a major advancement in their careers before graduation. What's really significant there is that when we started this program, we had a lot of skeptics on campus and faculty about whether you could really do quality engineering graduate education online. At this point, we have a vice provost, 3 chairs of engineering departments teaching as part of the faculty. And if anybody questions about the quality of online education that's happening in that program, those folks will speak very significantly from their own experience and the level of engagement they have with those students and the quality of learning that happens. And so that program is now really viewed on campus as the gold standard for how to do quality distance education. The program has also won a number of major awards, has continued to be in U.S. News and World Report's top 10 in quality for online engineering education. And I thought this was a quote from the University Continuing Education Association attesting to the quality of the program. So key point there is that what we have established at UW-Madison is that if designed and supported properly, quality graduate education can happen in any discipline, but it can. You really do need to have the commitment to certain quality aspects, and I'll speak to some of those as we go on today. So that was our first completely online graduate engineering degree program. Since then, we've developed several others. We have master's degrees in controls, in engine systems, in power systems, sustainable systems engineering, technical Japanese, and polymer science and engineering. 2 more that are currently being developed are in environmental engineering and in applied computing and engineering data analysis. Key thing with all these is that our target students are mid-career engineers. And so the courses that are taught, how they're taught, are really customized towards experienced professionals. There's a real emphasis in these getting away from lectures and focusing on project and problem-based learning. And I think importantly, going back to that question of what question are you trying to answer, our strategic goal was not to be the biggest. Our strategic goal was to find centers of excellence on campus, build master's degrees for practicing professionals that address market-based needs in those areas, and to build the very best educational experience for students in those areas. So that's the underlying strategic approach that we decided to take. I don't know about you, but certainly at UW-Madison, how we're looking at engineering education, period, is going through a major transformation, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. Kinds of things that we're completely rethinking are looking at opportunities for active learning, increasing the amount of project and problem-based learning that's happening both at the undergraduate and graduate level, looking at experiential and authentic learning, looking at helping students look ahead in their careers and immersing them in real problems that they'll be facing into their career rather than just being content to teach theory. And then really, what this is all about is rethinking about education from the student's perspective rather than staying stuck in a faculty perspective. But what do those students really need to be able to get ahead in their career? I want to pause for just a moment and ask, how about at NJIT and Rutgers? Do you have any transformative things happening along this line? Could I have some volunteer answers? I'll repeat those for folks, but what are some ways in which you might be rethinking how education is happening on your campuses? I know there are some ideas out there. Yes. I'm having trouble hearing. So really reconfiguring some of the physical spaces to enable more of the active learning approach. Is that right? Yeah. Very good. Yep, that's happening on our campus as well. Some others? Yes.
Experimenting with things like flipped classrooms, partially
Yes.
flipped classrooms, hybrid, trying to find new ways to create operating leverage and kind of get more effective education for our students.
Very good. So, and you said you're in the management program? Yes. Okay. So really, again, the flipped classroom, more active-based learning. Yep. Any others? Yes. Right. Okay.
Provost Deek already brought it up in his introductory speech, but at NJIT we're doing the idea of converged learning. So students can take a class either face-to-face, remotely in real time, or just completely online, never have to show up if they don't want to, but they can consume that at their own pace and at their own choices. So giving the power to the student.
Great. So doing away with this distinction we have between distance learning and classroom, but really enabling learning by however the student chooses.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. And there was someone back. There we go.
Good morning. At Douglas Residential College, we've been awarded a grant from the Gaia Centers, the Center for Global Advancement in International Affairs, to internationalize our curriculum. And so we're using a backwards curriculum design that's very much student-focused.
Very good. So starting with that student focus. Very, very good. Thank you.
At the School of Architecture here at NJIT, we've really always had experiential learning in the classroom since it began. Recently, with Hurricane Sandy, we've established a resiliency center, and half of our studios worked specifically on resilience projects. We're in the process of developing an app in order to sort of integrate handheld computing with that work that's operating out in the field.
Very good. I think architecture is one of the disciplines that really has, as you say, has always integrated experiential learning, right? So thank you. Yep, very good. Great, so, yes.
Challenges is to work with point-of-care information technology and try to bring that into the classroom. So working with some case studies, but also work with what I would say is inquiry paths. So what's the question? How do you access the information? Getting a sense of who's getting it, who's not getting it, using the class to kind of help each other out. So a lot of technology is coming into healthcare. It's one of our goals in terms of one of our learning outcomes with the program.
That's fantastic. Another example of very authentic learning and using technology not to create distance, but to increase collaboration. So thank you. Great ideas. Thank you for sharing those. So I mentioned the conference that Gail and I were at in Stanford, and John Hennessy, the president there, gave a great address on how education is being transformed at Stanford. He made a rather bold statement saying the large lecture class is dead. I've included a link to President Hennessy's address. It's a great half-hour presentation if you have time later to see it. But what that caused me to say is, okay, so if the large lecture class is dead, then why, in what I see in most of online education, is simply stream lectures and email assignments? If we're saying that the large lecture hall is no longer good, it's no longer quality education for our students on campus, why is sticking an electronic recording device of some sort in a lecture hall and streaming that out to students. Why are we calling that quality education? Why would we want to do more of the same? If we're recreating what we're doing on campus, let's use what online resources we have to really rethink education, period. Going back to that question, if online education is the answer, what's the question? Well, what is your goal as you think about online education? What's the primary motivation that causes you and your department, your college, your university to get into online learning? And what are the needs you're trying to address? What are the opportunities you're trying to realize? And the constraints you're living with that then help you to define the puzzle you're trying to solve. Online education is really a means to achieve an end, but unless you've defined the end, you can do a lot of wandering and spending a lot of fruitless effort and money along the way. My challenge to all of us today is, as we talk about online education opportunities, let's define a vision for our institutions, for our faculty, that really challenges us in new ways and creates new educational opportunities for our students. I would say in that sense, I'm always asked, well, is online education as good as what happens in the traditional classroom? And if that's your question, you're asking the wrong question, I'll tell faculty, because I'll let you compare what happens in our classes anytime, and I'll let you look at testing results. If that's the question you're asking, you haven't set the bar high enough for us, because online education really allows us to create new opportunities for who's learning, for who is teaching, for when and where teaching and learning occur, how that happens, and both the efficiency and effectiveness of the learning that happens. Also, what I find is that departments at the university that I engage with who really attack online learning in a very strategic manner, that then comes back to improve their face-to-face teaching and learning that happens on campus, because you have to be much more strategic and intentional in online learning than the impromptu attempts that are often made in the traditional classroom. So done correctly and with a very strategic approach, online education is it's not just doing more of the same, but really can be a fundamental game changer for what colleges and departments do. I should say a little bit more about my position. While I started that Master of Engineering Management program, my position has evolved into directing all of the graduate distance education that happens in the College of Engineering at UW-Madison. So my job at this point is really working with departments throughout the college, basically new product development, and saying what are the market needs out there and how can we address those with some innovative programs. What often happens with a department or an institution, it usually starts with a question of how can we increase our revenues through online learning. That's usually the first question that's asked, and doing that in a way that doesn't cost us a whole bunch of money. When I start talking with faculty, usually they're starting from the approach of how can we do this in a way that really doesn't cause me to much change in what I already do. And so we have to begin a discussion about, well, who are these new students that we're going to be teaching, and do their needs differ any from the traditional ones you're teaching on class? Because we really have to wrestle with that, and sometimes they're the same, but sometimes they really are different students with different needs because they're at a different place in their career. And also, usually the first question is, we have to have the courses be as good as existing on-campus courses. Well, that's a given, but we're going to go further than that. If those are your givens, usually where people start is then recording and streaming existing lecture-based courses. And let's be honest, that's what most of what online learning is these days. And it's mostly more of the same. I know at our college, we spent a whole bunch of money several years ago because one of the deans was real into lecture capture. And when I asked, what are these going to really be used for, the answer was, we'll figure that out later. We just got to capture all this. And I just bit my tongue, knew what was going to happen. You know, a couple years later, they realized that, well, that really wasn't the right way to go. We needed to figure out the right strategy and what really did warrant condensed lectures and what we needed to build around that for a truly quality educational experience. So what's wrong with that? Well, it all gets back to how do we think of online learning? One way that online learning often happens is folks think of it kind of as a digital file cabinet. You've got your PowerPoint slides, you've got other resources, you've got printed materials, and they just digitize, put them on a website, and we got an online course. Well, not so much. Another way that folks sometimes think about, or at least deliver online education, is through a big hose. You know, they think of online education as this thing where we just got to stream it out to everybody. They got to have a big bandwidth, and they're going to view things. And it often results then in students who are receivers of that content, but they have very little meaningful interaction with other students and very little meaningful interaction with faculty teaching the course. The vision I think is more appropriate and more exciting to faculty is thinking about creating a whole new learning opportunity. When I talk to potential students in our program, I say, you know, your computer is not going to be the end of a fire hose. Your computer screen is going to be a doorway into a very collaborative learning space where you're going to be interacting with other students and with world-class faculty in a very authentic and engaging way throughout every course in the program. Creating a collaborative, engaging, authentic learning experience, and creating a whole new freedom in where teaching can happen and where learning can happen. So really, the best forms of online learning is all about active learning and extending the boundaries of that. So we're seeing example. You know, you've already shared examples of how active learning is coming into your course design on campus. Well, that's really what we're talking about in the best examples of online learning. You know, if you look at, walk into any large lecture hall on any of our campuses, and you're going to see a bunch of heads like that, because getting back to John Hennessy's comment, the science has proven now that large lectures, large extended lectures, are not the best way for students to learn. So let's rethink how we're delivering learning. I'd like to give an example of that. One of the programs that we have at the University of Wisconsin is our Master of Engineering in Engine Systems. Here's a good example of connecting online learning with research and top teaching. We have a world-class engine research center at the University of Wisconsin that really leads in terms of design of internal combustion engines. We've done, over the years, a number of what we call short courses, non-credit courses that help engine design engineers improve various aspects of their work. What we found in that was there are lots of electrical engineers who are really good at controls. There are lots of mechanical engineers who are really good at moving parts. And there are really good chemical engineers who are good at understanding combustion. There are very few engineers who understand all of the engineering and science that relates to internal combustion engines and understand systems and subsystems design to be able to lead engine design projects. So what we did with working with our faculty from the Engine Research Center was design a program that does just that. Typically, it might take someone 10 to 15 years working in industry to develop experience in all those areas of engine design. We designed a program that's delivered over 3.5 years. This has engineers who are involved in engine design, everything from lawnmower engines to huge ship engines all across the world, who love the fact that now they get to study with each other. You might have let's say a noise and vibration specialist from Harley-Davidson working with an engineer from Toyota halfway across the world, and they love the fact that they all love, they live and breathe these engines, and they love the fact that they get to design over the course of that 3.5 years. They get to be part of a team that designs an engine together. That's the kind of educational opportunity that simply would not be possible in any of our locations because we don't have the critical mass of people, but we can create new educational opportunities for students doing that. That program led to an aha moment for me several years ago. One of the courses in that program is a course in engine project management. It's taught by a graduate from our engineering management program who used to be the chief powertrain engineer at Harley-Davidson, is now teaching at a university in the United Kingdom. He happened to be traveling, all of our courses have live web conferences, I should say. He happened to be traveling on this given day to Russia, in some fairly remote part of Russia, and he called me out from the UK and said, "Hey, Wayne, I'm going to be gone. I don't know if my internet connection is going to be good enough. Can you just sit on my class and make sure everything's going well?" I said, "Sure." So his guest speaker for the day happened to be Dr. Tim Leverton. Dr. Leverton led a team from the UK several years ago on designing a vehicle called Diesel Max that broke the land speed record for diesel-powered vehicles in the Bonneville Flats. Dr. Leverton was going to talk to students through the design of the vehicle and talk about the challenges of leading a team to design and build this car in several months and to be able to break the land speed record during a one-week trial period on the Bonneville Salt Flats. So here was the instructor in Russia. The guest speaker for the day was Dr. Leverton from the UK. We had students across the world, including one of the students at the time was the director of research for Indian Railways in India. Folks from Harley-Davidson, John Deere, Caterpillar, you name it. And I sat in kind of with my jaw dropped as I listened to Tim Leverton talking about this experience for these engineers. And at the end of that hour, I said to myself, if anybody on this campus ever says to me, "Is your education as good as what we do in the classroom?" I'm going to take them back to this recording, and I'm just going to say, listen to what happens in this hour, and you tell me any other hour in your class that has that kind of a quality, authentic, engaging experience. And that's what I'm really talking about when we talk about opening up a whole new world of educational opportunities of what's taught, who's teaching it, and who's learning it. So, you know, my invitation to you is really thinking about creating a new world with new opportunities for learners who, with these shared, unique needs and goals. This set of engineers, and I'm sure you can think of other groups that your university is particularly well equipped to teach. The new world allows us to engage best instructors, speakers, and projects from any place, anywhere. The instructors in our online courses are not just from UW-Madison. We've enlisted faculty from across the world with teaching our courses, depending on who's best in teaching any particular course. And it's about learning that really fits the needs and expectations of those students. One of the things that we find in a well-designed online course that really engages students with each other, it's all about teaching them skills that they need to work in a networked environment, because it's not just about working in your own cubicle. Projects these days for engineers, you're working with folks from around the world, and you really need to know how to very, very effectively collaborate with those folks. And so teaching them those kind of skills we find is essential. And so this then creates authentic learning that's immediately applicable. We tell folks the courses that we teach and the projects that these students select, we want them to select real projects that they're working on at that minute in their workplace, and we'll work with them on those projects. And that makes the learning really stick for adult students and allows their employers to see the immediate impact of what they're learning. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what quality means from a couple different perspectives. And when we think about student-centered learning, we did a survey several years ago asking our students what really makes the difference for you in terms of defining a quality online learning experience. first thing that they mentioned was the curriculum, that when they look at a degree program, what's really important in selecting the right degree program is curriculum that fits their needs. So for example, I mentioned our engineering management program. The students who come into that program are typically folks who say, you know, I need to take a step up in my career, or maybe I've just become a manager. I was looking at MBA programs. MBA programs kind of fit what I was looking at, but that engineering management program, though, when I look at those courses and the topics that are taught in those courses, that's where I live every day. I want to stay an engineer, but I want to be a leader, so the curriculum fits for them. And that's true with the engine systems programs and others. So it's really about the curriculum first and foremost. Second thing that students mentioned was responsive faculty. Faculty who are authentically engaged in the course and that the students know are accessible. It means a lot to me when our graduates say, you know, it meant a lot that when I went through the program, those faculty were more accessible to me than on-campus faculty ever were, because I had to comply with their office hours if it was a on-campus program, but I'm getting faculty answering my emails 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. What's that about? To have that level of engagement by faculty is very significant. A culture that fosters valued and supportive community. I mentioned the engine systems program before, so as students go through that program, they're connecting with other professionals, other peers, they're developing relationships, and all of a sudden those relationships and those they have with other graduates from the program create a lifelong learning community. And so one of the things we do, for example, is we don't kick them out of the university course management system when they graduate. We enable alumni to stay engaged so that alumni, current students, are developing a very life-giving, knowledge-giving community that nurtures them throughout the rest of their profession. Students mentioned that they want assignments that are authentic and meaningful, not busy work. So we really challenge our faculty to say, you know, there's a certain set of assignments that you're going to give to students who are here on campus who don't have professional experience yet. But for those folks who are in the middle of their careers, the assignments that are going to be more authentic and meaningful to them are going to be different. They're looking for real application to projects they're working on right now. Students want elimination of unnecessary frustrations and hurdles. So clear instructions. I think all of our online students, you know, a lot of the homework happens at midnight. And when you're in the middle of assignment at midnight, you got to have clear instructions because you don't want folks spinning their wheels and getting frustrated. You need to have reliable technology and support. It's not about great bells and whistles. It's about stuff that folks know how it works and they can depend on it working. And there's a single call number or somewhere where they can get help whenever they need it. Because, again, you don't want folks spending their time spinning the wheels. And then finally, removal and mediation of what I call institutional BS. You know, we got all kinds of stuff, I know, at our university where someone has a registration issue, a payment issue, all kinds of stuff that happens, and they're just directed to go to this building or that building. You really need to rethink student services for online students. When they need help, where they need help, really does differ. And I've seen so many examples of this where I have a friend who was in an online program and you know, she needed some special publication from the library, and the library expected her to drive 3 hours to their campus to go pick it up instead of sending something to them. Our library folks have been absolutely fantastic with designing services that really meet the needs of our online students. And it's funny, they say that they get more thanks and appreciation from our online students than they ever have from the on-campus students because they're very intentional about reaching out to them. Another thing that really makes a difference to students is having the right mix of structure, consistency, and flexibility. You really need a structure that keeps students progressing in a paced manner rather than letting it go and snowball on them. At the same time, they need the flexibility to conduct, for instance, their work within a given week whenever it fits their schedule as much as possible. So it's finding that right balance for the students that you're serving. And then also students knowing that their feedback matters. We really are very rigorous about course and program evaluation, feeding that information back to students and letting them know how their input changed the design of a course or a program going forward. That then causes them to give us much more meaningful feedback rather than feeling that their input just goes into some big database that really doesn't get used. Flipping that a bit, what matters to faculty when we talk about quality? Again, in addition to our students doing an evaluation of each course, we have faculty evaluate each course. So at the end of the semester, we have a questionnaire that the faculty fill out, reflecting on their experience, their perceptions of how the class went. And what happens then is I, as program director, the instructor, and our instructional designers all meet together. The faculty know that they have a team that's working with them, that this isn't us judging them. It's saying, how did we do collectively, and what can we do before we offer this course again? So what matters to faculty? First of all, effective support, knowing that we're relying on them to be the subject matter expert, but we're not expecting them to learn the ins and outs of all the course management logistics, that we will provide help to them to deliver the best possible experience both for the students and for the instructor. Knowing that faculty's efforts are valued and appreciated. Both, this is best done actually through the effective support. If I provide support to faculty, then they know that they really are being appreciated. Fair and appropriate compensation. This is one of the issues we're really wrestling with at our university about. We have a couple different models for how this is done. Could spend a whole day actually talking about this, but it really is important that faculty are appropriately rewarded for the effort it takes to develop an online course and for the instruction. Faculty want new opportunities. Something that's boring is not going to keep your faculty engaged for very long. So it's really important that we show faculty that we're interested in creating the best possible experience for them and their students. And it's not just about doing more of the same, but it's continually advancing the bar on the quality of teaching that happens. Knowing that their input matters just like that of students, and faculty want motivated and capable students. So one of the jobs for me and our other program directors is making sure that we recruit the very best students for faculty, and faculty feel like they're able to teach now students that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to teach on campus. Our engine systems program is a good example of that, where our faculty see, wow, I'm now teaching students from whether it's you name it, the engine manufacturers, and creating new opportunities really for those faculty to work with those companies. I have here a model of creating quality learning environments. It was created by some colleagues of mine in our Division of Continuing Studies. And what's important there is they emphasize the importance of quality online learning environments being learner-centered, being knowledge-centered, and being assessment-centered. So you've got the content, the student, and the faculty all coming together, creating a vibrant and authentic online learning community that's then supported by the 7 principles of effective teaching, creating context between students and faculty, reciprocity and cooperation, prompt feedback, keeping students with time on task, active learning techniques, communication of high expectations, and respect for diverse talents and ways of learning. So I think that's a kind of a good global model, if you will. I'd like to transition at this point to talking about some practical ways some of this can be carried out to really transform engineering education. I think it really begins with really deciding, and I mean really deciding, not just giving lip service to it, to meeting the needs make meeting the learning goals of students as the #1 priority, because I got to tell you, this is a real challenge for us, especially at research universities, where so much is driven by the research agenda, and the question is, are faculty willing to adapt what they teach to the students that are being taught? As I mentioned, in our programs, we're really targeting mid-career professionals, and so very often the needs of those professionals differ from a 21-year-old student who doesn't have industry experience. So one of the first discussions I have with potential faculty teaching in our programs is whether they're really willing to adapt what they teach and how they teach to adult practicing engineers. If folks give me the yes on that, then and they're an expert in their field, I know we've got a recipe for success. If someone simply says, no, all I want you to do is record my lectures, that goes a different direction. So that really is a fundamental decision about whether you're willing to seriously understand the learning goals of your targeted students and adapt what you teach and how you teach to that student group. Secondly, I think it's really important as you think about designing a new degree program to think programmatically and not just as a bundle of courses. I've seen this happen so often where folks just want to take a bundle of existing courses and call it a degree program instead of really thinking programmatically about when someone graduates from this program, what are the new skills and abilities that they're going to have? What are the courses that we can create that enable that? And how do we develop meaningful integration between those courses in terms of assignments to carry over that reference each other, that build on each other, so that students see the program as an integrated whole and not just as a loosely set of bundled courses. And this is also where then it's important to engage faculty in assessing not only their own course, but the program as a whole. So what we do in our programs is when students graduate, they assess the overall program, and then we follow up with alumni after graduation several years to, again, have them reflect back on how would they change the design of that program now that they've been an alumnus for several years. I can't overemphasize the importance of engaging experienced, capable instructional design personnel. Really important here that so that faculty can remain the subject matter experts, but work with experienced instructional designers who can help them think about how best to enable students to learn the material. Important to support faculty all the way from course development, delivery, evaluation, and improvement. I would also offer that it's important to use online formats and tools to build effective, meaningful community that supports learning. So one of the ways we do this in every degree program, we have what we call a community site where issues that are beyond any individual course can be discussed. Also, that provides an opportunity for cohorts from different years to connect with each other. Also provides opportunity for current students and alumni to connect with each other. And that's something that, again, that alumni stay active in even after their graduation. So it really is a very meaningful sense of community. I mentioned earlier the importance of authentic assignments. So here it's important to think about what students are learning and give them real projects that enable them to customize what they learn to the types of professions that they have. As we develop these programs then, we can use what we learn in terms of effective course teaching to improve all courses. That is, bringing that back into the classroom, into the on-campus classroom. And what I find is that the most successful programs for us are ones where we can build linkages between on-campus instruction, research of faculty, and creating new student connections into industry. And I think that Engine program is a great example of that. Another one, we have a great research group on campus that does power electronics, and they have an industry group of lots of industries that have power electronics engineers. So what they have done is create both professional development courses and a master's degree that meets the needs of engineers in those industries. And so, it's the research, the graduate education, and the on-campus education are really creating a synergy with each other. Some practical advice as it relates to course design. We find that designing good group projects is really important in terms of teaching students, these engineers, how to lead and contribute to distributed teams. So one of the courses I co-teach is project management. And we assemble teams of 3 to 4 students in that course. We intentionally have them from different time zones, different countries if possible. And they choose a real project at one of their workplaces that they're going to work on, developing a new project management plan for that project. And they have very challenging assignments over the course of this semester. And then it's up to them to figure out when they're going to meet, how they're going to meet, but we provide tools to them and teach them how to very effectively collaborate at a distance. And they say it makes a huge difference in their ability to lead projects in the workplace. I think it's important to thoughtfully complement asynchronous instruction with synchronous instruction. So all of our courses have live web conferences every week. I mentioned that in our cohort programs, those are typically 30 students, and what we do every week, we'll have a 1-hour web conference that's taught 2 different times. We break the 30 students into 2 groups of 15. One time is in the morning, one's in the evening. So students can figure out which works best with their schedule or where they happen to be in the world on any given day. These are professionals that are traveling all over. But that gives us the ability to adapt to wherever they are, but also it's a small enough group that this is not a webinar that's a stream at you recording. This is a highly interactive session where faculty are engaging students in discussion about case studies, about projects in their workplace. Students are giving presentations about things that they're doing to apply what they're learning. So it's, again, a very engaging opportunity for them. I also find that these web conferences, we didn't do this in all courses originally. What we found is that by having a live web conference, it gave the faculty a level of engagement with individual students that was far above what happened if the instruction was simply asynchronous. Because all of a sudden, they could call out the student by name, engage with him or her very effectively. I think it's also important to have students contribute meaningfully to online learning. So in those web conferences I mentioned, we sometimes will have students present the solutions to their homework for that week. In our project management course, we have a student every week present something related to the topic for the week, a 10-minute presentation. So if we're talking about project budgeting, it might be an engineer from John Deere talking about how they do project budgeting at John Deere. If it's scheduling projects, it might be an engineer from Boeing. All of a sudden, they're not just learning from me or the other instructor, they're learning from the 29 other engineers, seeing very real examples of how these concepts are being applied in their workplace and developing models for what they can do going forward. Some further practical advice. I mentioned the importance of students being able to collaborate. So here it's important to provide free access to tools that enable that kind of teamwork. We find that in addition to the projects we assign, sometimes our students create on their own these study sessions. Just like students here might meet at the student union or the library for a study session, they get together in a webinar and go over what's happening. I mentioned one of our students was a director of research for Indian Railways. He now is a helper in one of our courses. He leads study sessions from India, Saturday mornings for students. He's one of the best instructors I could think of. But again, it's creating opportunities that simply, if folks have to get in the same room at the same time, won't happen. But we can provide tools to them. Another important tool would be document management tools. So teaching students how to work collaboratively with good practices in terms of being able to create documents, share them with each other, control permissions, things like that, again, help them in the workplace. those same tools can be used to engage alumni. So one of the things we found is helpful is we continue to have free webinars for our alumni on different topics that keeps them engaged with the university, keeps them engaged with current students, keeps them feeling very invested in terms of the future of our programs, and they receive authentic help going forward in their career. I would also say that the best online learning, we should be free to look beyond our own provincial boundaries for instructors. And so I always start as close as I can to home for the best instructor, but if I have someone who doesn't want to play ball or is not willing to deliver the kind of quality education that we want, we'll go anywhere to get the best instructor. And I like that it's creating new opportunities for our universities to work together. Some things to avoid. First of all, I would say anything that makes students in an online class feel like second-class participants. And this happens much too frequently, where, especially if you're using the electronic peephole version of a class, someone feels like what's being taught and how the instructor's interacting is really targeted to who's ever in that room, and I'm kind of a fly on the wall looking in without much of a voice. And so it's really important to think about how instruction happens so that those students are very meaningfully engaged. Avoiding faculty frustration and burnout. This is top on my agenda because I know if I've got a faculty member who wants to teach as part of our program and we go through developing them and their online teaching skills, that's a resource I don't want to lose. And so what makes me feel great is, so right now we have a great example is Jeff Russell was chair of our civil engineering department, was recently promoted, actually about 2 years ago, to be vice provost for lifelong learning for the whole campus. He said the one thing he wanted to continue teaching in was our engineering management program because he loved the quality of interaction that he had with his students and just how that fueled his understanding of what adult learners needed. That meant a lot to me. We have Jake Blanchard, who was chair of our engineering physics department, recently promoted to associate dean for the College of Engineering. Same thing, he said, the one thing I want to continue teaching moving into administration is the course on engineering problem solving because he loves the interaction that he gets with adult learners. So if you get that kind of investment by faculty, that says that online learning can be very authentic, engaging for both students and for faculty. I would also say that failing to plan at the program level is something important to avoid. This gets at that point again of really having someone who's thinking and acting at a program level and not just at a course level. One of the most common mistakes I see is the build it and they will come approach. The idea that if we just have great courses with great instructors, we're just going to have folks beating down the doors to sign up for this program. That rarely happens. Developing a good program that has a strong, vibrant future really has to begin with understanding what the market needs, designing the program to meet those needs, and then communicating, having a very effective program, marketing and promotion plan to communicate that and to recruit the very best students. It doesn't just happen. So I'll wrap up with just saying when we talk about recreating engineering education, let's not set that bar too low. Let's get beyond the valid criticisms of much of online learning because what we can do is so much better than that. So with your faculty, create this vision of where you want your institution to go and how to use online learning to get there. Create the path and specific stepping stones to get along there. I've shared some ideas of that nature. I like this quote, "You must be the change that you wish to see in the world," by Gandhi. I think that really reflects that, we need to walk the walk in order for others to be able to follow. I want to move on to discussing some ideas and questions you might have, but before that, I'll also say one of the things that in our engineering management program, we present graduates with a plaque, and one of the sayings on it that vision without action is a daydream, action without vision is a nightmare. And I think you really need both of those. You need a vision, and a vision that really is worthy of your faculty and your institution, so that online learning isn't just about turning a crank, but it really is creating a new world. And then couple that with very specific, with a well-thought-out action plan to make that vision real. We've got lots of time. I want to just open it up now for your thoughts, questions. I would really love to hear some ways that perhaps you're creating a vision and new opportunities in some of your online learning. Yes?
So since you are speaking of engineering education, and I'm coming from the College of Engineering at NJIT, implicitly and sometimes even explicitly during your presentation, you seem to have a dichotomy between the subject matter expert and the course designer.
Correct.
And I wish to tell you that this is very, very simplistic, with all due respect. The 150 engineering professors and instructors that we have here are not subject matter experts. They are engineering educators. The difference is, the assumption that the course design and the course content are separable and they are two different disciplines is a bit naive. We certainly can benefit from someone telling us, let's go to the classroom, not to use a blue chalk on a green blackboard. That's very helpful.
Right.
But there is much more than that that is needed, because you need to understand, especially in higher level classes, you need to understand what your students know, what they remember. Do they get what you teach them? And in some cases, you need to make very dramatic modifications almost in real time in order to make sure that you get through. Subject matter experts by themselves are not very good at doing that. You need someone that has the ability to affect the design of the course and the methodology by which the course is delivered, and not assume that this is just an input into another process. Now, I understand the importance of course design, but it is very naive to assume that we can separate the two and that we can have the instructors do one thing and the designer do something else, and together it will be successful.
I couldn't agree more with what you said. But I would say that perhaps I didn't explain myself very, very well. What I have found from experience is that our faculty greatly value having an instructional designer come along with them. And it begins with a process where that instructional designer helps the faculty identify course learning goals, looks at how the various ways, the tools, the methods one has in an online course, and is really a partner. I agree that they are inseparable, but I would say that bringing them together is more than the addition of the individual parts. I just know that in our online programs, I have a number of faculty who say, I will work with you guys because you provide the help that I need on my on-campus course. If I want to do anything online, it's just up to me to figure it out. And I spend an awful lot of time just wasting time figuring out how to produce things. Whereas you're enabling me to create learning in a very supportive environment. And I guess that's what it's about, is providing a supportive learning environment.
Hi. If I'm understanding you correctly, the program that can everybody hear me? The program that you were initially speaking about, the first program that you designed, that was created for online delivery.
Correct.
True?
Correct.
Yeah, I think one of the things that struck me throughout your presentation is that there's a big difference, and also not just at a course level, but also at a program level, that there's a big difference between designing a course for online and translating a course, an on-site course for online. And perhaps one of the reasons that the program is so successful is that it was designed with the delivery medium in mind, rather than, do you understand what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It really, because it's both the content and the format optimized for someone learning at a distance. I agree with you. Looks like back there.
Feedback that faculty give. You mentioned at the end of when they finish teaching a course, self-assessment. Is it voluntary, et cetera?
Right. We have a questionnaire that faculty fill out that asks them to reflect on what they thought went particularly well for this course this semester, what didn't go so well from their perspective, changes that they've already identified that they would like to make to the course before the next semester, any logistical issues that they experienced as they went through the course, and any areas where they would appreciate some help going forward. And then what happens then is the instructor, instructional designer, and the program director sit down and go through that together, and as a team determine what should happen and when before the course is offered again. Yes. Never had an instructor decline because they say they really they appreciate the kind of teamwork. As they say, they look at it as a very supportive thing. It's not a judging at all because we're looking at the results together. Yes.
The majority of your presentation was using examples from highly creative courses.
From highly what?
Highly creative courses, targeting to this relatively small group, using the resources all over the world. I wonder if you can share your experience with mass courses, like gateway courses, which hundreds of people on campus have to take.
I will say my experience doesn't extend into that area. Our strategic goal is creating smaller graduate programs that are in limited enrollment, so I really can't speak knowledgeably from that area. Yes?
You use the term authentic very frequently in your
Yes.
discussion. I saw it as something that was part of like an assessing how good the learning was doing, but also a method or a technique. Authentic problems, authentic experiential learning. Could you really spend some time talking about authentic and what are the characteristics? How do you know
Sure.
when it's happening?
Yep.
And how do you design for it?
Authenticity to me means learning that matches the real challenges and goals of individual students. So when we give them assignments, and that's why these programs tend to be relatively small, is we really want to challenge them to come up with projects that allow them to customize their learning. So whether it's project management, choosing real projects in their workplace that they're working on. If it's, I mentioned the engine systems program, they're choosing a type of engine that they and their team are going to design over the next 3 years. We have a communications course in our engineering management program. The communications course, they select something that they're working on, a communications product in the workplace. It might be a proposal, could be a paper they're preparing, could be some training materials. They work on that as part of the course, so it's not just reading something and filling out some exam, but it's choosing a project. And then, for instance, in that communications course, they conclude that course with giving a presentation in their workplace that they record, and then they and their peers critique each other on their skills. So it's about authenticity to me means direct relevance to where they are, where they want to go, and enabling that progression. Yes?
Really inspiring presentation. And I think I wrote everything down that you said, but if I may, can I cue you back to the what quality means to students slide rather than
Yes.
me repeat it? And I'd just like to have you comment on two kind of discrete points related to that. Okay. Okay, so I mean, this obviously is designed for mid-career professionals, but every one of these bullets, I think, would relate to students in an undergraduate or graduate face-to-face or online course as well.
Yes.
So what is distinct about mid-career that would differ from regular education? And then the second point is related to this. Again, in School of Architecture, we try to place students in with working professionals, in some cases mid-career professionals. We did it very effectively with the Rebuild by Design program, where students were working with some of the teams working for HUD. It was a remarkable experience for both, and I've heard the professionals come back and say that there was a real up-mentoring that was happening in terms of both ideas and especially technology that was happening. Did it ever occur to you to allow select students that are in their 20s in a sort of master's degree sequence into this program to work with these professionals? So to reiterate, what differs between this list between those two cohorts, and would you ever commingle those cohorts?
Excellent question. So I would say that what the mid-career professional has is experience to reflect on and to build upon, and it can contribute to the learning that happens in the classroom. So for example, in our engineering management program, we require 4 years of professional experience at a minimum before someone can come into the program. Our typical student has 10 years of professional experience coming into that program. Now, what happens when in our project management class, for example, it's not just learning from me and the other instructor, but we can really have students contribute learning from their experience that builds the learning that happens in the class. So it's much more than the electronic version of the sage on the stage, but we have a very meaningful shared collaborative learning that happens. In terms of mixing those professional students with on-campus students, yes, we're actually trying that in some of our newer programs. One of our more recently created programs is our Master of Environmental in Sustainable Systems Engineering. And there we are intentionally mixing our mid-career professionals with on-campus students, and we're doing some experiments with team assignments to find out, are we better off having those groups in their own teams or mixing those groups of students? So it's something we're trying to better understand at this point. Gail?
I've heard you speak in your colleagues about your modules and competency-based model.
Yes.
That gets reflected into the fully online degrees. I wonder, in the time remaining, if you could speak a little bit about your experience with modules for online learning, reflecting industry needs.
Sure.
So thank you.
Yep. So one of the things that we're seeing is that across not only our master's degree programs in engineering, but across other disciplines at the university, there are a set of professional competencies, we're calling them, that are really pertain to students across all disciplines. And one of those, for instance, is project management, communication skills, ability to work effectively at a distance as part of teams, negotiation skills, creativity. There are a bunch of these that really apply to kind of disciplines of all sorts. Take that, plus the fact that we're really reconsidering the fact that why at the university is our standard package the 3-credit course. Maybe we need to unbundle what happens there and create some 1-credit courses. So one of my colleagues, Carl Veith, is leading an effort of creating a series of what was initially 10 1-credit courses of this type. They were called the Big 10. Interesting now, it's 14. So just like in the conference, the number of courses keeps growing. But we're seeing that those courses, there's significant demand across campus of all of our professional master's degrees. Folks are saying, yeah, those are skills that professionals, regardless of their discipline, are asking for. And so we're in the middle of creating those courses right now. I would also say it's interesting that I was just on a committee that's looking at reorganization of our graduate school, and one of the things that they are looking at is that creating some very similar courses, or perhaps using these same ones for graduating PhD students, who they're saying, we're graduating a lot of PhD students who are never going to qualify. There aren't enough jobs at research universities for these. We need to prepare them for other professions, and these are courses that will give them professional skills in those areas. Yes.
You talk about things that are in technical colleges. You talk about issues that are in technical colleges, but one of the issues that you brought up was talking about how to pay faculty. And
Yep.
One of the issues that I have encountered is having faculty being highly resistant to teaching online courses or hybrid courses because of the perception, perhaps correctly, that it takes more effort. You mentioned that you all are investigating, but what have you come up with so far in terms of motivating or paying instructors for teaching these courses? Thanks.
So first of all, in terms of the effort, it really does require significant effort to create a quality online education experience. If you're willing to do more than just the stick the recorder in the back of the room approach. So that's why we are willing to pay faculty to reflect the investment of their time to create a new course. If they are willing to create a new course that really is targeted to the needs of the students that we're seeking to reach, we'll pay anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks of salary for their development efforts to create that course. We will then, if it's a cohort program like our engineering management program, where we know we're going to have 30 students every year, we actually buy out then part of their teaching load, so they're relieved of teaching another course on campus. If it's more of an entrepreneurial program where we're uncertain, then we have a revenue sharing situation between our department and theirs, yes. So yes, faculty are paid for their investment in these programs, and that's the only way that they're really sustainable long term.
Yeah, no, I've spent probably at least 25 hours creating a new course, and it definitely takes more time. And again, you know, you gladly respond to students when they're contacting you, but you definitely, you know, would not contact or respond back at 10 p.m.
We tell faculty to expect that the first cycle will definitely take them more time than it would for an on-campus course. That may be true for 2 cycles. After 2 cycles, they should be able to spend actually less time than they would for an on-campus course.